Hi guys, welcome to the All Cove podcast. I'm Sheena.
And I'm Senna.
And today we'll be welcoming Drew as our guest. Tell us about him, Senna.
Well, Drew is an amazing person. He is a senior librarian at TUJ, but he also is just a very knowledgeable person. He has a lot of very cool hobbies. And I think we're just going to talk a little bit about that in this episode. So,
Yay, excited. We love talking to him.
Yes, let's get into it. All right, well, thank you so much, Drew, for being here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. I guess we can start off very simple. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. My name is Drew, and I am the senior librarian here at Temple, and still relatively new. I started in June last year. I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I've been in Japan for about 7 years now.
Wow. 7 years. That's impressive. I think you've been in Japan for pretty much just as long as me, which is wild because
It goes fast.
it
right?
does. Yeah. I feel like I just got here yesterday and then all of a sudden like, oh, wow, 8 years passed. So that's wild. And I'm curious to know, you said you're from Michigan. What brought you to Japan? Did you always know you were going to come to Japan or?
Never at all. I mean, I enjoyed playing Nintendo 64 growing up, and I kind of had a bit of exposure to Japanese culture, but I never thought I would live outside of Michigan, let alone outside of the States. So it kind of came up when I was working on my master's degree, after deciding to be a librarian, kind of pursuing that professional goal. It was an online program that I was working through and figured that, well, I'm doing the degree online before I get settled into a full-time job. Why not try to go get some kind of short-term experience internationally? I had some friends who had taught English in Japan and Korea, and they enjoyed the experience a lot. So I thought, okay, I'll come over here, finish up my degree. Once that's over, I'll go back and look for a full-time job, and found a librarian job here at the Tokyo American Club, and I stayed since then.
Wow, that is wild. What a journey. That's crazy. You've done so much.
Yeah, and then it's a very common story too. Everybody thinks oh, it's just going to be a year, or it's going to be just a little bit of time, and then 20 years down the road, you're still here. So,
Right, that's true.
very common.
When you were doing English teaching and stuff, you did that for how long, by the way?
About 6 months. Yeah.
Okay.
While I was still working on my classes, I was always kind of looking around online for librarian jobs, and just trying to refresh it every month just to keep an eye on what's going on. And that one popped up and I applied, and there's not a lot of English-speaking librarians in Japan.
True.
And so it was just kind of lucky timing.
Did you always know you wanted to be a librarian?
I didn't always know. It came up when I was working on my undergrad. I was kind of in my first year, and I got a job reshelving books part-time at my public library downtown. And I didn't expect it to be a full-time career. I was studying philosophy at the time, so it's not like there's a clear career path out of philosophy, but I kind of was thinking about the idea of maybe teaching at a university down the road. After working in the library for a while, I transferred to our local history, genealogy, archival department, and was working there for a bit. And I really loved the research and learning more about my hometown and the history of the area and working with the materials there. And that was really where I discovered wow, I love doing this kind of work, and this is what I want to do. Not so much specializing in one thing, but just kind of learning as much as I can about as much as I can,
right,
and assisting other people with that.
So. I like that you said that because actually we have a joke where we like to, and I don't know how you're going to take this, but take it as a compliment. Okay. We like to refer to you as the human encyclopedia because we feel like we could just come to you, and if we bring something up, you'll probably have something to say, something to bounce off of.
Thanks.
And that's I think there's probably no one else on campus we could probably call that.
I think that's one thing that's fun about being a librarian, especially at the public library, where I've got more, maybe 10 years of my full experience is more in that kind of setting. But you just never know what question you're going to get hit with. And every day you get so many random questions. And after 10 years, it adds up and you got a lot of weird stuff in your head. So,
yeah, I bet. Yeah. On campus, have you ever gotten any strange, funky questions that you're even I don't know about this?
Yeah, there's an art to that answer. But it was funny because when I first started here, when the semester just began kind of down the road in the fall and everyone was just starting on their research projects, I was still fresh in here, and somebody came in and said, I'm doing a research paper on the history of soybean agriculture in Manchuria. What have you got?
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so it's
that's specific.
I think about that. And it was interesting, and we had a lot more than I expected, and we were able to go through and find a bunch of stuff. And then immediately after that, another student came up to me and said, I'm doing a paper on the history of sex toys.
Oh,
And
wow.
what have you got
Oh,
there?
wow.
Okay, well, I didn't expect this today, but now I've got some knowledge on 2 different things. So
That's crazy.
and every day you just get all sorts of questions. I mean, everybody's writing on all sorts of different stuff.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
So it's not so much that you need to be a subject expert on that thing, but just at least to know enough of the resources available to be able to like point people in the next direction
Right.
most effectively, I think is kind of the art of being a librarian.
Yeah, no, and I think you nail that like on the head, because I was even talking to Sheena about this, and she was saying how like, you know, her way of doing research completely changed just based off of conversations she's had with you, right? Yeah. Which I think is crazy. I feel like that's like
That's
huge...
a great compliment.
Yeah.
I ask for one thing, he comes with 10.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, you don't want to show up with nothing and be like, sorry, I don't have anything for you.
That's true. Yeah, that would be kind of disheartening.
Yeah.
I even have a personal anecdote too from a time. I still remember the first time that I ever met you, which was in the library one day. I was looking around for like some book that I needed for a class. It was during the summer semester. And I just like saw this person come up to me and say, oh, what is it that you're looking for? And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, wow, this like feeling of having someone to just like guide you through the experience of like searching stuff in the library is so helpful. I think it's something that probably, you know, people don't think like, you know, when they go to the library, they probably think, oh, I want to figure things out on my own. I want to do my own research and do all this digging. But like being able to just be like, oh, hey, do you have any kind of like tips or any kind of like, you know, just maybe pointing me in the right direction so that I can have a clue of maybe where to start is something that probably people don't think about very much, you know? They maybe want us to have this sense of pride of like, oh, I did the research myself and I looked it up. But I think the way you come in and you help is so like, how do you say it? It feels very like supportive, but also very like, oh, but if you don't need anything, it's all good. I'll just be, you know, in my corner.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's and different people approach it in different ways too. Like sometimes you can just kind of tell like, okay, this person's like in the zone working on this thing. I don't really want to disturb them. But if I can, because even for me, it's like a good part of my own professional growth because like it's a new challenge for me to try to be able to help this person in whatever they're working on. So, it's valuable to learn how to navigate and research on your own for sure, but also ask, like do both. Get good at doing it yourself and also be very comfortable asking all the resources. Like don't limit yourself at all because you're closing yourself off from all of this other stuff that you never knew that you might be interested in.
True. So. And speaking of limited resources, I'm curious to know, I know the library, of course, everyone knows the library has books, but like what other things does the library have that maybe people wouldn't know about?
Yeah, it's changed with libraries over time. I think now the philosophy is that libraries are the community's resource, and our role is to provide resources for free to our community. And so that can be a free place to sit and work. It can be a quiet place to work with a group. It could be a place for meetings and events. It could be movies. It could be music. It could be streaming documentaries. We have Blu-ray DVD players that you can check out now. There are all sorts of interesting things going on. Like in the States, the New York Public Library will circulate business suits.
Oh, wow.
So if you have if you need a job, if you need to go to a job interview, and you don't necessarily have the money to buy a suit for that one interview, go to the library, rent the suit, do your job interview, bring it back when you're done. It's like cake pans, fishing poles, bicycles, all sorts of stuff. And like the main campus library, they've got a podcast studio. They've got 3D printers. They've got sewing machines. They've got like a whole virtual reality room that you can like play with the Oculus on their like Omni treadmill stuff. And
that's crazy.
It's not just books, but like really my job is to help you find what you're looking for, and whatever that is, try to give it to you for free and try to at least point you into the next place where someone else might have something that might be useful.
Right. And you've already done that for me too, because I know like for me, for example, I'm working on my film thesis right now. So I was doing a lot of research of like, you know, movies and things like that. And I remember thinking, oh my goodness, like I don't even know where to start when it comes, because I've seen, you know, the movie archive, the DVDs we've got all at the library. But I thought like, oh man, where do I even begin? Like, well, I have to sift through each one. But then you're like, no, we have this beautifully like, you know, organized archive or like this beautifully organized catalog with all the different movies like organized. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so like eye-opening. And I found exactly what I was looking for and more, like all these other films too that I never probably would have heard of if it wasn't for, you know, coming up and checking that out. So I was pleasantly surprised, and I'm really glad that you had helped me out that time, because yeah, I mean, now I'm working on it, but I feel like I had a really good moment of like research before I even started, if that makes sense, you know?
Good. Yeah, we have a really interesting movie collection too, and it's changing a bit now with streaming involved, where some movies are, if they're only produced in Netflix, it's only existing in that environment. So it's a bit more difficult for me to get a physical copy for someone else to watch. But there are ways to find different things, and it's a stable collection. Whereas, like, it feels like, every time you want to watch that one movie is the month when it's not on Netflix.
Yeah,
Whereas,
true.
like, we always have it on the shelf all the time, and you can just go and check it out.
Right.
And we try to focus a bit more on, like, harder to find movies, or more like kind of cult cinema or foreign films or these types of things where it's a little more difficult to find in just the regular searching for things. So,
right.
Yeah, it's a cool collection. I highly recommend people to get involved.
Yes, I recommend people too to go check it out, because I think a lot of people don't know what kind of stuff it does. Like, are there any movies you can think of off the bat that maybe people wouldn't think that the library has?
We have. There's a lot of really good Japanese cinema up there, and some collections of, like, the history of Japanese animated cartoons. So it'll be a collection of, like, all of these shorts.
Oh, wow.
Or like Soviet era cartoons, or we have some other collections, like all of David Lynch's short films that he directed. We've
Oh,
got
cool.
like a collected edition that's like up in the upper left shelf.
I need to go check that out, because I would love to go watch that.
Yeah.
And I bet, the Japanese film stuff, I'm sure, is something that's, like, also super special to TUJ in a way, right? Because, like, a lot of people I know are really into Japanese film, but maybe, like, finding them online, that kind of stuff is really difficult. So
It can be difficult. Same with, like, the Japanese literature and the Japanese history. Like, we have maybe one of the strongest, if not the strongest, collection on that kind of stuff in Japan.
That's
and
amazing.
even for main campus as well, I went to visit them in December. We were kind of working together for about a week, and they also know that we have a really great collection of Japanese-related resources. Then we're trying to find a way to also help those students in Philadelphia accessing some of our stuff to support their research too, because we've got so many interesting books up there that, like the U.S. Embassy got rid of its library maybe a decade or so ago, and they gave us all of their books.
Oh,
and
wow.
so we have these, like, really rare, like, manuscripts from, like, World War II for, like, different kinds of plans and stuff.
That's
that are up in there.
crazy.
So there's some really hidden gems that are very difficult to find in other places.
That's wild. Do you guys get a lot of donations from different people?
We do. A lot of it can come from different events that are going on, trying to stay connected to the authors that are producing books in Japan. Sometimes, like recently, there was a journalist who kind of covered Macau and Tokyo, and he moved back to his home in Sweden, and he just donated his collection of stuff. And a lot of it was just books that he collected over time that were related to his articles, and there's some really interesting stuff in there that's out of print now. So
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I know TUJ has a lot of really cool archives of stuff as well. Like, I know, I think I had heard you mention that there's archives of even previous work that, for example, TUJ students have done in the past. And even when I was sifting through some of the movies, I didn't realize that there was, like, for example, previous students, like, short films are being kept as well.
Yep.
Is there anything else, like, I don't know, archival stuff maybe that you know of that you think would be interesting to share that people probably don't know?
We've got a lot of the older yearbooks. Those are pretty interesting to flip through just to get a sense of how far we've come and how things have changed and how they haven't changed.
Wait, TUJ
also.
had yearbooks?
Yep. So we got yearbooks of the students from, like, the 80s, and a lot of the professors and staff that are still here. We've got pictures of them from, like, 30 years ago.
That's
in the yearbooks.
Oh my goodness, I need to see that. That's wild.
We have an archive of the Uprising zine collections.
Okay.
So people can kind of come up and take a look at those. We are hoping to see more, like, student publications, and we've been talking a bit with, like, the Creative Writing Club, and also looking at maybe if there is a way to do more, like, zine type support or a zine festival or something like that, and maybe to grow a student publication collection like this, where there's, like, a TUJ zine library
That
of
would be
things
so
like over
cool.
time. I think it would be interesting to grow that out. Same with the photography capstone through Patrick Tsai's class. They are making their own photo
Right.
books, and so we've got boxes of that stuff as well. And
Yeah.
that's a part of our community and something that we want to make available.
I feel like, it's crazy because I know that students on campus are doing so many different things. And I know that there's people who have a lot of, like, different interests and different stuff. But maybe people don't know that, there's a community of people out there who also want to maybe make zines or even, like, I feel something that would be super cool to do at some point would be, like, some kind of book fair or something like that. Is that a thing that already has happened? No, right?
I think that we did do something in the past, talking with Ian Lynham. It sounds like there have been a couple things like that we've done a while ago.
I see.
I haven't really booted back up. It sounds like the pandemic really kind of reset everything. So there's a lot of rebuilding that's going on since
I
then,
see.
as far as like community engagement type stuff. So
Yeah, I hope that pans out. And I hope that if there's people listening now, if they're interested, that they can come see you and
please.
like
Yeah.
talk about that. Cause
Yeah, I started the Zen Festival in my hometown, and I've done a lot of my own zines. I mostly do like mini comics. I haven't drawn anything in a long time, but yeah, I really love to work through like printing and layout and thinking of ideas and helping other people self-publish. And I used to run like comic book clubs with kids before and showing them how to like reprint their own comics on the photocopier. And these are like 8-year-old kids, and then suddenly they got their own little comics that they're like giving out to people or like trying to sell for money or something.
that's so cute.
Yeah. But very empowering, because before they felt like the photocopier was this big scary machine, and like
Right.
suddenly now after a couple hours, like they know how to reproduce their own little booklets. And
Right.
that's so cool to see and to provide that skill to them.
That's so cool. And actually, speaking of comics, my image of you is that you have a lot of different hobbies and that you're interested in a lot of different things. Tell me a little bit about the kind of stuff that you do, I guess, outside of the TJ walls.
Outside of the weekdays, on the weekends I'm usually out in the mountains. This winter now I'm doing a lot of ice climbing and skiing. Been more interested in like backcountry type skiing. In the spring and fall, I do a lot of trail running and rock climbing, like multi-pitch or bouldering or sport climbing. In the summer, I used to really dislike summer in Japan because it's just so crazy hot. But there's a type of rock climbing that's only done in Japan called Sawanobori, where you're actually climbing up waterfalls, like the gorges up in the mountains.
Oh, wow.
And it's so cool and so interesting, and it's refreshing because it's really humid, but like you're in the cold water and it's
Right.
all mossy everywhere, and you kind of climb your way up into this pristine little pool and fish, and then make a little campfire and grill the fish that you just caught. And
Oh, that's cool.
you're doing these like old approaches up these mountains that people haven't been on in like 100 years, and it's different from like taking the regular trails up because you're up at the peak and you're kind of seeing out. But when you're like down in like the heart of the mountain,
Yeah.
where like the clean water and like really like vibrant like mushrooms and stuff everywhere, and there's deer and animals, and like it's so cool. I really look forward to summer now because of that.
That sounds like a scene out of a Disney movie or something. It sounds like, I don't know, some like Bambi or something like that. That's amazing. I feel like, it'd be really cool to have like some kind of exploration thing like that at TJ too. Like, cause I know it's probably not the kind of thing though that like beginner rock climbers could do, right? It's like a little bit more advanced.
It is dangerous. I did break my hand 2 years ago and had to
geez.
get a metal plate put in, which I'm getting removed here soon. But it was funny
wow.
because when I was at the hospital and I was going through the contracts, it actually said at the bottom, like, no Sawanobori for a year. Like, it's that dangerous that it's in the hospital
no.
contract. But it's a really interesting activity.
Wait, so it wasn't like a custom contract, but in general?
Like,
no
just the
Sawanobori?
general hospital
Oh,
contract,
wow.
it said, like, no motocross, no Sawanobori.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
so does that mean you don't get to do it for a year?
It's not recommended, but
I see.
I still went, yeah.
You did it.
Yeah.
Nice. But that means you love it a lot, right?
I do, yeah. It's really interesting, and it applies a lot of different kinds of skills because, like, you need to be able to swim and hike and fish and understand how to use all of the rope gear, and it's this really interesting application of a lot of different things. And it started from trout fishermen in Japan, and it's like they wanted to get higher up into the mountains to get these really unique fish that live at these high altitudes.
I
And the
see.
only way to get up there was to learn how to rock climb. So it's like these
Right.
fishermen learned how to rock climb with this gear, and they started to use like rafting, like wetsuits, and they use these like felt-soled shoes to grip the wet stone and moss.
Oh, I see.
So it's this really interesting like hybrid thing that if you search in English, like there's not really anything about it at all. So
Right.
it's really, really interesting. I don't know if I would be able to get the university to be okay with me
Yeah,
taking
probably
students
not.
out, liability-wise, but if somebody's interested, please come and talk to me, because it's
Yeah.
hard to learn about this stuff. It's hard to kind of get into hiking and the outdoors, but it is amazing in
Yeah.
Japan. So yeah,
Right.
I really try to get out to the mountains every weekend if I can. Outside of that, I like to sometimes I was writing articles for the Japan Times. I did cocktail recipes every month for a while.
Nice.
I love eating and traveling and just trying to stay, interested and have a healthy appetite for as many different things as I can. So.
Yeah, and I feel like the word that we kind of came up with for you that I think encapsulates you, and by all means, let us know if you disagree, but I feel like exploration is a really great word to kind of sum up who you are as a person, because I feel like you don't only explore intellectually in terms of like research and the library itself, but also like the things that you do in terms of like your hobbies, your interests, the way that you do things like, rock climbing and things you were mentioning earlier. So I feel like, that's something that's really, I don't know, unique to you. Maybe I wouldn't say unique to you per se, but like, it's something that I think you're specifically very good at. And I was wondering if maybe there's TUJ students out there who want to become better, I guess you could say, explorers. Would you have any tips for them? How can they kind of like maybe push themselves outside of their comfort zone, become like better at, maybe, just discovering new things? What would you say to TUJ students?
Yeah, like growing up, I was a really introverted, quiet person. And over time, just finding interest in different kinds of things and just kind of seeing how those things connect and talking to different people about it. And I just think it's really valuable to like explore and browse, and like life is so rich and there's so much stuff out there, and it all connects and builds out and becomes more rich. Like I'm now reading a lot of like books about like Japanese geography and mountain formation now, and geology, which like I wasn't interested in before, but it does kind of apply to this other activity, which I didn't think I would be into a couple years ago. And you never know. Like I didn't expect to be here at Temple doing these things on the weekend and living in Japan, but yeah, I have a really great life here, and I'm really happy.
That's amazing. We want to end this off with a fun little question. Actually, a few little questions. The first one is, do you have basically like a hack, maybe something that's like a TUJ, I don't know, maybe secret, so to speak, like something that's a resource at the library that you think is kind of underrated? What would you say that is?
In my day-to-day observations, I think that we are the untapped resource, and I think it's worth just coming up and talking to us and asking us some questions more often. A lot of people come in and out, and they like use the study desks, and they get what they need, and that's great. But like collectively, a lot of the library team has been there for a very, very long time, and a lot of us are learning that collection well, and some of us like really, really know that collection. And like just if you're working on something, come and ask us, and you might just get a bunch of other random stuff that you didn't know was going to be helpful, and it maybe changed your entire assignment and made something super easy or much more interesting and enjoyable to work on too. So just come and ask us anytime.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense, because even for me, like I said, I think I had a little bit of that pride of like, I need to do this by myself. But like I realized asking is not a crime. I mean, if you just walk in and say, hey, I'm curious to know if you know anything about this.
Yeah, I mean, some of the best friends and the most valuable resources in my life came out of just like asking somebody, some random person for help someday, and like who knows how that might change things.
Exactly.
And, why not ask?
For sure. No, I love that. That's actually a really great point, because I do think probably a lot of people go in and out of the library without thinking like, what if I asked the librarian about this? So yeah, that's fair.
It's
Please.
my favorite place to shop books as well, for free.
Yeah. And we can do like book recommendation stuff, and we want to hear what you guys are like reading and researching too, because it helps me like when I need to purchase and support like the collection with new books. Like I am trying to find stuff that's going to help our community. So if I know what everybody's working on, then it's easier for me to decide how to build out the collection too, because I know what's being researched. So
right.
It helps me when you come and talk to me also.
That's true. That's true. And it has happened to me, for example, when I found out that it is possible for students to, for example, request books. I was like, I did not know that. And so I started, coming in and being like, hey, do you mind getting me this book? I need it for this paper. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think that was like a thing you could do.
Yeah. I mean, if we don't buy it outright, like we've got a whole network of all of the other Japanese universities in Japan, and we can reach out and ask them to mail it to us, or the main campus librarians will scan chapters out. And like, even if we don't have it here immediately, we will work and try to get it for you somehow.
Amazing. I love that. And that actually brings me to my next point, I guess, because another fun question we thought we would throw your way, which is, I guess you could say the question of the day, is what are your thoughts on AI? Because I know, of course, the library itself is a massive resource, and so is AI. But like, what do you think of AI?
It's interesting. It's interesting to see how quickly it's changing. Interesting to see some of the new stuff going on. We have a like AI committee amongst some of the professors and some staff here. And so they have been working on some research projects. They recently presented at a conference back in the States on some of their findings, but like they try to keep us updated on things that they've learned. And Yeah, it's interesting, and I'm excited to see how it grows. I think right now it's kind of like a hyperspeed unpaid intern.
Yeah.
Where like it's super fast,
Right.
but I don't know how motivated or like excited it is to be pulling this stuff. And it's only able to pull like whatever it has access to. And so
Right.
like for research, it's not quite that useful. It's good for like brainstorming type
Yeah.
stuff, but like so much of scholarly research is like behind a paywall or something where like you have to pay or you have to belong to a university to get access to. And so
Yeah.
AI doesn't have access to all that stuff. And so
Right.
it's only as good as like what it has access to and how well that stuff is described. And it's also only as good as like what you ask it and what you put into it as
Right.
well. And so it's growing and it's changing. Sometimes it'll make up things.
Yeah.
If it's like pictures, then they're pretty interesting. Or like there was like a AI pizza commercial that like is still haunting me to this day. I don't know if people have seen that before.
A
But,
pizza commercial?
yeah, just it's really interesting, like visually what AI can come up with.
Right.
And sometimes it's like a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's like Uncanny Valley, right?
Yeah,
like that,
that
weird
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, look up the pizza commercial.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, over 2 years, like it's really interesting how different
That's true.
things are now.
I'm sure in a decade it'll be even better.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
even a little scarier. Who knows?
Yeah, but there's something valuable, like also in doing like print research and looking through books and
Yes.
looking in like primary source materials
Right.
and like don't just rely on one thing. Like try to get experience with all of the different things. And,
Right.
Yeah, don't limit yourself.
And I think that's where someone like you comes in and like truly helps people out, because it's like the library itself has so many different types of resources available that it's like if you are looking to do like really expansive research, not just like going to one place, then like obviously going to the library is the best thing for them,
Yeah,
right?
and researching is a really valuable skill.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think of like students that are alive now and what they're working with compared to like 30 years ago.
Right.
And like how, like what a cool opportunity to be like able to work with this much information.
Yeah.
And it's messy and it's kind of getting messier. And that's
Right.
why I think like librarians as a career are still going to be very valuable in like metadata management and
Right.
yeah, there's just a lot of information and it's growing really quickly and it's hard to find the right thing
Right.
in such a big tangled mess of stuff.
That's
So,
true. The internet is a big tangled mess of stuff,
Yeah.
so
So that's where librarians can help in finding the right thing for you.
Right.
Instead of giving you 10,000 things that might work.
true. Yeah, that's true. And actually, we want to end off with like a really quick segment.
Okay.
So in this segment, we decided we want to do this or that,
Okay.
but we decided to dial it up a notch.
Okay.
And to make it even more kind of, I guess, intense, by saying if you had to pick one that you could only do and or have for the rest of your life, which would it be?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it. So the first one is, and this is, I'm sure, a classic that you've, I'm sure, been asked before, but if you could only do, or if you could only choose one for the rest of your life, which one would you pick between ebooks and real books?
Real books.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I like how you said it. That was confident.
Ebooks are great. And it's so nice to be able to search through a whole ebook that quickly. But it's just, if I want to read a book and enjoy it, like it's not the same.
Yeah, that's fair.
For
I
me.
agree.
Other people like ebooks. That's fine.
That's true. That's true. The next one is audiobooks or podcasts. Choose wisely.
Podcast.
Nice. That's what we like to hear. But no, but actually, no, I'm sure audiobooks too would be great as well, right?
Audiobooks are good too. I have like I always lose track of things, and I kind of like, if I'm on the train, I'll like kind of doze off and look out the window and forget where I am and back things up. And yeah, I usually read more though, so than listen.
Right. That's fair. Then I guess, yeah, in that case, podcasts could be probably the better pick. Wink, wink. All right. Next one is marathon or trail race. I know you said you run as well a little bit, right?
Yeah, trail race for sure.
Trail race,
So last
okay.
year I did the Tokyo Marathon last year, and I also did the Ultra Trail Mount Fuji, which is a 100-mile race around Mount Fuji, and that took me about 42 hours of running to get done with it. But
Wow. 42 hours?
42 hours is like 42 and a half.
Oh my
But this
gosh.
is like Asia's biggest ultra marathon.
Okay.
And my experience doing that and my experience of doing Tokyo Marathon, I much enjoyed the 100-mile race.
I see.
You see so many beautiful things out on the trail.
That's true,
It's
yeah.
soft, like running on concrete. It's not very enjoyable. And
That's true, yeah.
running around in the city. Like, it was a great atmosphere, and I enjoyed Tokyo Marathon, but I like being out on the trails.
Fair
much more
enough.
so.
That sounds amazing. 42 hours. Wow, I could never. If you could only pick one between writing and drawing, which one would you pick? Because I know you do both, right?
Yeah, maybe drawing.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Drawing is a kind of writing.
That is
but-
true. That is true. Drawing is a
Yeah.
kind of writing. All right, then the last one we'll end off with is, this one is for funsies since, the Kyoto campus just opened up. Kyoto or Tokyo?
I like Kyoto, but I would choose Tokyo.
Okay.
I really love the mountains around Tokyo.
That's true,
so
yeah.
There's, you just have such good access to so many different things, and it's such a big city with a lot of cool things going on. So
That's true.
I do like being here.
That is true. I like being here too. Hey, I've been here for 8 years, so I don't blame you.
But Kyoto's great.
That's
and I'm
true.
excited to go visit the new campus when it's
Me
open up.
too. I'm excited as well. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
That's
thank
it.
you.
That's
Thank
the
you.
episode. Thank you for coming on. Is there anything you want to mention to the viewers? Anything you want to maybe say to close off?
Stop by the library and say hello.
Amazing. Great. Love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that was a great episode. Aren't we just lucky to have him, Senna?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think Drew's such an amazing person. He has so many really cool things to share. And just, having a really brief discussion with him already to me was just a really great opportunity to learn new things and to discuss with him and ask questions about the library. So, yeah, it was a great one.
And TUJ Library is actually open to everyone, not just the students. So come to our library and just talk to him. It'll be fun.
Yes, I agree. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys are interested in seeing future episodes, make sure to rate us on Spotify. And also go check out the question of the day. We'll probably have something down there for you guys to answer for us. And I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Bye.
Bye.